The two had different visions, and those visions clashed. Sources close to the production said there were constant rewrites. One version leaned toward Ford's traditional hero story. Another went darker to match Pitt's portrayal of an Irish revolutionary. The end result was a film that felt split down the middle, and two leads that rarely made eye contact during press interviews. There wasn't an explosive fight, just friction that was quiet, professional, and unfixable. In interviews after the release, Ford gave generic responses about a challenging project. Pitt wasn't as restrained. He later told a reporter, "It was the most irresponsible filmmaking I've ever seen." Occasionally very useful to stand in front of a blue screen and imagine that you're gazing out from the top of the Eiffel Tower over the city of Paris, and you're not. That's Pitt's version of calling someone out, and it stuck. They've never worked together again. Despite both starring in prestige dramas, action epics, and major studio films, their paths never crossed on screen again, not even in passing. In Hollywood, you don't need a screaming match to end a working relationship. Sometimes one uncomfortable shoot is all it takes. Pitt and Ford gave the world one film, and then quietly shut the door behind it. Number 5, Gwyneth Paltrow. Before Brangelina, before the tabloid chaos, there was Gwyneth. In the mid-90s, Brad Pitt and Gwyneth Paltrow were the golden couple of Hollywood, glamorous, loved, and practically inseparable. Then, without warning, it ended. No scandal, no explanation, just over. They met on the set of Seven and were engaged not long after. Pitt was completely smitten. He even called her the love of my life in interviews. For a while, it looked like forever. But behind the perfect photos was a disconnect neither of them would talk about. "Hi, Brad. How you doing?" Then in 1997, the engagement was called off. Gwyneth was the one who ended it. She later said, "I was not ready. I was too young. He was too. Good for me." Pitt never publicly talked about it in detail, but in the years that followed, something was missing. There was no friendship, no public moments of support, no working together again. In 2003, Paltrow told Diane Sawyer that she messed up the relationship, but Pitt remained silent. He didn't respond. He didn't show up at mutual events. He simply moved on completely. Even when both actors became regulars at the Oscar ceremonies in the 2010s, they were never seen talking to each other. No hugs backstage, no posed photos, just parallel lives that never overlapped. Then, in a rare 2022 interview, Paltrow joked with Pitt about almost becoming his mother-in-law, only because it was structured and playful. But it felt like the first time they'd even acknowledged each other in decades. That silence, it wasn't bitterness, it was finality. For Pitt, some relationships don't end in flames. They just get sealed off. No bad words, no dramatics, just emotional closure with no chance of starting over. When Gwyneth walked away, Brad didn't chase. And once he shut that door, he never opened it again. Number 6, Jennifer Aniston. They were America's sweethearts. Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston, the ultimate red carpet couple. Charming, polished, and for a while, untouchable. But behind the effortless smiles was a quiet countdown. They married. In 2000, every photo looked perfect. But 5 years later, Pitt left, and the world watched it unfold in real time. When Mr. and Mrs. Smith came out, rumors exploded. Angelina Jolie was suddenly in every tabloid, and Brad's marriage to Aniston ended. Shortly after filming wrapped, the timeline said enough, even if no one confirmed anything. Aniston kept it graceful, but she didn't sugarcoat it. In a Vanity Fair interview, she said, "There's a sensitivity chip that's missing. That wasn't a headline grab. That was heartbreak." She never publicly attacked Pitt, but the message was clear. He blindsided her. And in the years that followed, The distance only grew. No working together, no appearing together. They moved in entirely different circles. Pitt leaned into producing and prestige films. Aniston rebuilt her career through indie work and eventually prestige TV. Their lives went completely different ways. The media tried to bring back a friendly story, especially when Pitt showed up to her birthday party in 2019, but sources said they barely spoke. No photos, no posed moments, just polite distance. In 2020, fans went crazy over a Zoom table read they both joined. Pitt smiled. Aniston smiled. But even then, the air was stiff. Nothing intimate, just good PR. Hi, Brad. You know how cute I always thought you were. They've never worked together since the divorce. And despite fans begging for a reunion, the silence between them speaks louder than nostalgia ever could. Jennifer didn't need revenge, and Brad didn't apologize. The story ended with silence, and it's stayed that way ever since. Some actors fight loudly. Brad Pitt walks away quietly. One role, one conflict, one moment of distance, and the connection ends. Number. Statement, no second chances, just a name he never says again. It's not personal, not always, but it's permanent. You don't get back in once the door closes. And the ones he left behind, they all have one thing in common. They never saw it coming. Pitt doesn't need to cut you out publicly. He just stops picking up the phone, and by the time you notice, he's already moved on to the next frame. I want you to know I watch everything. I watch you all, and the work has been amazing. Brad Pitt doesn't like fighting with people. Instead, he just disappears. And once he decides he's done with you, he won't tell you. You'll just stop being part of his life. It would still hurt me the same way, but you know, after 27 hours of just feeling terrible. For over 30 years, Pitt has been at the top of Hollywood, meeting famous people, dating celebrities, and winning Oscars. And during all this time, he's learned one special skill: quietly cutting people off. He's not the kind of actor who calls people out in public. There are no angry quotes, no videos that go viral, just distance. Clean, permanent, and usually hidden until it's too late. Fight Club, Legends of the Fall, Inglourious Bastards, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Pitt's list of movies is filled with famous roles, but behind those films are actors and people he worked with who were never seen with him again. Some of them were co-stars, some were girlfriends, some were once close enough to be like family. But when things go wrong, when trust is broken or egos clash, Pitt's next move is always the same. Nothing. No drama, no announcement, just a smooth, quiet exit. You won't find mysterious tweets. You won't see explosive interviews. What you'll notice is that he's gone, on purpose, with surgical silence. Be a bit shy in any kind of situation first. Yeah, but it's really like something I'd look forward to. He stood beside the biggest names in the business, and they never stood beside them again. Here are 6 actors Brad Pitt shut out, and why their stories with him ended without a final scene, and the last actor will completely shock you. Number 1, Tom Cruise. Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise, 2 of the biggest names in movies. You'd think they'd get along, but on the set of Interview with the Vampire, the energy was weird from day one. They were cast as immortal enemies, but the tension wasn't just in the script. Pitt later said that filming the movie was one of the worst times in his career. He described the atmosphere as dark, cold, and creatively draining. Pluck out the pain and give you another life, one you could never imagine. Cruise, known for being intense, kept his distance. Pitt, still learning how to handle being famous, didn't like the way Cruise worked. In an interview, he said, "You got to understand, Tom and I are different types of people. He's North Pole. I'm South. My God." The disconnect was real. Pitt said Cruise's presence made him uncomfortable. There was no teamwork, no friendship. Just two stars sharing space with nothing between them but the script. When filming ended, so did the relationship. No working together again, no public praise, no future movies together. And it's not just about personality. Pitt has chosen a very different path, playing flawed, complicated characters. Cruise stays in his lane of being perfect and in control. That difference in approach might be exactly why they never cross paths again. Out and feel you would be unable or unwilling to perform the duties listed on the safety card. Even years later, Pitt's comments stayed calm but clear. When asked about Cruise, he said, "He does his thing. I do mine." It wasn't an insult. It was a quiet line drawn in the sand. In an industry built on reunions, this one never happened. And that tells you everything. Number 2, Angelina Jolie. Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie weren't just a couple. They were a worldwide event, from Mr. and Mrs. Smith to international charity work, red carpets, and raising 6 kids. They built an empire. And then they destroyed it. It didn't happen quickly. The breakup was a slow falling apart that turned into one of the most bitter legal fights in Hollywood history. What started as tabloid gold quickly turned into sealed court documents, leaked. Reports and cold courtroom tension. "You still alive, baby." At first, they kept it polite, or at least they tried. But by 2016, things changed. Jolie filed for divorce, saying it was for the health of the family. The press ran with every rumor. Behind the scenes, it got brutal. One of the main fights was about the French winery they both owned, Chateau Miraval. Pitt accused Jolie of secretly selling her share to a company connected to Russian billionaires just to hurt him. Jolie's side claimed Pitt had tried to silence her during the divorce. And then came the private jet incident. Accusations came up. Jolie claimed there was verbal and physical abuse. Pitt denied it. The FBI looked into it and ultimately closed the case with no charges. But the damage was done. Their relationship didn't just break, it was completely destroyed. Jolie, once seen smiling beside him at movie premieres, now talks about survival. In a 2021 interview, she said, "I'm not the person who makes decisions lightly. It took a lot for me to be in a position where I felt I had to separate. I finally feel like this is the right life, and I'm on it now. I was a bit off track for a while." They've never been in the same room since, not at events, not even for their children. Co-parenting happens from far away. What was Z? Once Hollywood's most powerful couple ended in silence, lawyers, and locked gates. For Brad Pitt, that chapter isn't just over, it's completely burned. Number 3, Edward Norton. In Fight Club, Brad Pitt and Edward Norton created one of the most famous duos in modern film. But off-screen, their chemistry didn't stay as good as the movie did. At the time, Norton was known as a serious actor. Method acting, intense, super focused. Pitt brought raw energy and instinct. On camera, it worked. But behind the scenes, things were less smooth. According to people who were there, Norton had a habit of taking creative control. He'd rewrite lines, challenge the director, and shape his own scenes, often without warning. Pitt didn't fight back publicly, but sources said he wasn't happy. One crew member even described the atmosphere as competitive but tense. Years later, when Norton was kicked out of the Avengers movies for being difficult to work with, people remembered Fight Club and started connecting the dots. Pitt never openly criticized Norton. He's too controlled for that. But in 2008, when asked if he'd work with him again, Pitt replied, "We had our moment." I think that film says everything it needed to. That wasn't just a polite dodge, it was closure. Despite Fight Club's cult status and lasting popularity, the two actors never worked together again. Not on a sequel, not on another project, not even for anniversary events. Norton, meanwhile, kept his distance too. He rarely mentions the film unless asked. There's no obvious tension, but no warmth either. When two actors create something that iconic, people expect a follow-up. But when creative values clash behind the scenes, it only takes one project to know. Never again. For Brad, Fight Club was lightning in a bottle. And like lightning, it never strikes twice. Number 4. Harrison Ford. Brad Pitt and Harrison Ford shared top billing in The Devil's Own, a 1997 political thriller that should have been a home run. Two massive stars, one high-stakes story, but what happened off-screen was more tense than anything in the film. It started with the script. Ford was already attached when Pitt signed on, but Pitt quickly realized the screenplay had major problems. He publicly said, "We had no script. We had a great idea, but we went in with nothing." Ford, an experienced industry veteran, wanted more control over his character. Pitt wanted a darker, more politically charged approach.